So business is really challenging today, and most businesses find themselves in a very competitive landscape. And the reasons for that is everybody's doing the same thing, and they've done all of the same things. So they've implemented Lean and Six Sigma. Talent is very mobile these days. They have access to the same capital, they have access to the same technologies. Any ideas that people have disseminate very, very quickly. So you end up with a group of businesses all competing very hard against each other. And it's hard to step out from the crowd. And what we find, therefore, is that you have to do all of these things just to stay in the game. And executives are really busy. They're working very hard, almost to stay in the same place. And what they're looking for is how do I get ahead? What's the next thing that I need to do? So what you need to do is create the culture that's going to allow you to make big step changes and respond much more rapidly and in much bolder ways to the opportunities that exist in the changing marketplace. So every business has shown that they can drive 1–2% incremental improvement every year, and it's simply not enough. You've got to have your people believe that they can jump much further forward, be motivated to push into the unknown, to go try new things and win at them, and have the capability to deliver and put the result to the bottom line. And we call this abundant thinking. Abundant thinking is all around you. But what we've learned in the last decade is how to spot it and nurture it and cultivate it to create the sorts of individuals and organizations and cultures that can really make rapid changes. So think of people, try and think of people in your organization who you feel have been much more abundant thinkers that you've worked with over time. And there'll have been people who just had a stronger belief that more was possible, always seemed to have more energy and drove at stuff to achieve changes that others didn't. And these people will have produced great success. You might be one of them. And also at times you'll have seen people get worn out because the organization couldn't support them. And there'll be people who had lots of energy, could do good stuff, and they've disappeared and have gone and worked somewhere else. And what we want to do is help you identify these people early and build a culture that can support them and learn from them and help them reach their potential. So abundant thinking is not just about dreamers, it's about doers. And to help paint that picture of how abundant thinking can help a business, I'm going to tell you the story about a mine. Okay? And this mine was a large open pit mine, and it was rated #1 in its class. So it could move a ton of ore cheaper than anyone else in its class, which was the definition that was used. So these guys had done everything. They implemented all the things. They were very strong. They had a strong organization, and that's why they were #1. But there was some pressure for them to improve further, okay, because of the commodity nature of mining. And they wanted to improve more, so they decided to apply a more abundant thinking approach to the business. And what they were able to do, even though they were rated #1, they were able to reduce their cost to move a ton of ore by 20%, which put them, they were already #1, it put them far beyond any of their competitors in performance. So what did they do to do this? Well, there are a number of large problems that they were able to identify. And I'm not going to go into the how they identify new problems. I'm just going to take one that's very simple for us to talk about. Okay, so this large open pit mine moves material using trucks, really big trucks, the biggest trucks in the world, and they move material back and forth. And the opportunity that was being pursued was, well, what if we put more ore in each truck? Okay, so fairly straightforward, not a complicated idea, not a new idea. People have been thinking about this for decades. And you go, that's a pretty simple idea, should be pretty straightforward. And of course it turns out that the reason it hadn't already been done is because it's not that easy when you haven't built the right culture. So imagine now that you're a mid-level improvement engineer in this organization who's tasked with getting more into that truck. And I want you to empathize with what it's like to work in that business with sort of an abundant thinking approach and without it. Think about meetings that you attend. Here's this improvement engineer and they go, okay, what we need to do is put more ore in each truck. And what happens? Well, there's some resistance and you'll see an executive go, well, tell me why it can't be done. And you might think, well, that's a pretty good, bold question. Yeah, that's good, challenging people in meetings. But the issue is it's just fundamentally flawed, and the reason is not the choice of words, it's the belief inside and the role modeling of that belief. Because when you ask someone why something can't be done, you're engaging their brain, you're sending a cultural message that that's how they should use their creativity. And people are really good at explaining why things can't be done. You've got the manufacturer, the supplier of the truck, who they have all kinds of reasons why it can't be done that slow you down and probably prevent progress. You might damage the truck, void the warranties, or might spill out, etc., etc. You talk to the tire suppliers and they go, well, you might have tire failure, which is actually very dangerous for these large trucks. And you also might have increased tire wear, which is really, really expensive. It's going to cost you tens of millions of dollars a year and negate any savings you get from putting more in the truck. So you're like, that's pretty difficult. You talk to one of the senior experts in the mine who's been around a long time, they understand mining better than you do, and they tell you it's just the wrong philosophy. That's not how you optimize a mine like this. It's all about the scoop loading the truck, because that's the most expensive piece of capital equipment. So your thinking's just wrong. Okay, if you understood more about mining, then you would know that. You have other people who go, well, look, we already overload trucks and cause critical problems, and you see stuff spilling out on the road and it blocks stuff, so you block the flow of traffic. It's a safety issue. You also have people who tell you, we just simply don't have the data. These trucks all have load cells so you can tell how much they're loaded by, but a bunch of the load cells are broken, and the reason they're broken is because there's no opportunity here, we don't need to do this, and the critical constraint actually is our maintenance shop, and if you want to fix the load cells to get good data, you're going to spend a fortune with these trucks not in service in the maintenance bay, and there's not time and space for them anyway, so you just can't do it. And that's the sort of challenge that people face when they're trying to implement what conceptually is a pretty simple idea. What you need to do is have questions that come from a different place. If you believed that a lot more was possible, if you believed it could be done, and you were motivated to go get that opportunity, and you had the capability, you knew your organization could do it, you wouldn't ask a question like that. You'd say something like, explain to me what needs to happen in order for us to realize that opportunity. And now you're making people think about how to build stepping stones to get to that opportunity. And when it's implemented, people can take huge steps forward. So I have two exercises for you. The first is write down the names of 3 people in your organization who you feel are not very strong abundant thinkers. Write down what they say and do and how that hinders the organization advancing. Then write down the names of 3 people who you recognize as being quite strong abundant thinkers. What do they do and say, and how does that help the organization advance? The second exercise is for you to, when you're in meetings and interacting with people, ask the sorts of questions that an abundant thinker would ask. Try and hold those beliefs that more is always possible, and ask the questions such as, what do we need to do to realize this opportunity? And see how the organization reacts and responds to that. And you'll learn a lot from that. So clearly, driving this change in all these people and changing the culture of organization is going to be much more complex. But by building your knowledge of abundant thinking, it should prepare you for the changes that your organization should make, and it'll also help you understand the potential that really exists in your organization.